This question of civil disobedience on the part of Christians, it's clear that there are factors in life which will produce an impossible clash between the will of God and the will of man. I'm thinking of the midwives in Exodus 1:17 who refused to do what they were told to do in terms of killing the firstborn. This was impossible because God had said otherwise to them. That was genuine and admirable civil disobedience. Same thing occurred then in the case of the three men burned in the case of Nebuchadnezzar, who was a vicious tyrant. And they said, even if God doesn't deliver us, we will not worship this image. Straightforward civil disobedience. We have to obey God rather than man. And that's the clear statement of Peter in Acts 5:29. We must obey God rather than men. Now, having said that, there is a place for the Christian to use the law in his favor. Paul used his citizenship, his rights as a citizen, and that was perfectly right. It's certainly a right to use the police to defend you. God has allowed those, given us the benefit, in fact, of a legal system to protect us. Nothing wrong with that at all. There's a place for resigning one's job if one is being forced to do something which one cannot do. You can go to prison, of course, if that's your choice. It might be wiser just not to do that job and therefore not to create a conflict situation. And different people will decide those things in different ways. But it's quite clear that our obedience is to God and to Jesus firstly. If we're being asked to take a sword to kill other people, we have a conscientious right in this great nation and other nations not to do this. This is a very great blessing. And there have been conscientious objectors in various denominations for many years. They just feel that killing other human beings, killing other Christians indeed sometimes, and enemies, is contrary to the will of God. You have a right then to be civilly disobedient, and you must stand up for your rights. If, for example, you have somebody in your house who is not living sexually in a pure way, you have an obligation to kick them out, because you are responsible for what goes on in your house if you're the leader of that house. That's very important. So each decision then is made on the basis of what is the will of God for us and what is the will of the government. We certainly are enjoying, under the First Amendment, all sorts of privileges which other nations have not been privileged to enjoy. The Church has been exceedingly cruel in terms of doctrinal dogmas, where they used the sword of the state to kill off people who disagreed. They cursed and anathematized people who didn't believe in the Trinity. That is simply a sign of things being totally out of hand. You know for sure that the arguments have gone horribly wrong when people are killing each other over those things. That's absolutely impossible. So the New Testament breathes a wind of sanity, really, over all of this and says, God's will be done. Jesus went to the cross at the hands of angry religious objectors, and the state, of course, as well, because Satan did not like what Jesus was doing. He doesn't like what Christians are doing. So you're under fire from the satanic powers, the demonic powers, if you're doing the will of God truly. And you have your rights, but it may be that you have to go to martyrdom, if necessary, to obey God rather than man.